for the national anthem to be played on the national instrument by a national icon, Mr. Earl Brooks. I ask you to keep standing as I welcome Brother Shoaib Mohammed to say a prayer. Brother Mohammed.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim ghairil maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita wa ala ali Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidul Majid. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta wa ala ali Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidul Majid. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, Master of the day of judgment. Thee alone we worship, Thee alone we ask for help. Show us the straight path, the path of those whom Thou hast favored, not the path of those who earn Thy anger, nor of those who go astray. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. O Allah, exalt Muhammad and the followers of Muhammad, as Thou did exalt Ibrahim and his followers. Thou art the praised, the glorious. O Allah, bless Muhammad and the followers of Muhammad, as Thou hast blessed Ibrahim and his followers. Thou art the praised, the glorious. O believers, this is the time for receiving Allah's mercy. So open your hearts to Him. Being the creator and sustainer, He gives to everyone. So you should call on Him at all time of your needs, desires, and wishes. O Lord, You are the merciful and forgiving one. You are ever willing to answer our petitions. Kindly solve our difficulties and problems that we have to face every time. Have mercy on us, O Lord, and forgive us for our sins that we may commit knowingly or unknowingly. Cure the pains of the suffering and answer the silent prayer of all who are present in this gathering. Amen.
Thank you, Brother Mohammed. I now ask Bishop Hazrat Ali to come and lead us in further prayer and to bring further blessings to this gathering.
Almighty and ever-loving Father, we bow in your divine presence this evening in the name of Isu Masih, Hazrat Isa, Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God. We thank you for this beautiful nation, Trinidad and Tobago. We thank you for the very constitution that governs this nation, where it declares the supremacy of God. It declares the freedom of all men based on moral and spiritual values and the respect for law and order in this country. We thank you, O God, for all those who have gone before us, who have laid beautiful foundations that we can build on even at this present time in the history of our nation. Your word declares we must pray for all those who are in authority, for kings, for leaders, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and fear. And so tonight, as the business of this nation is about to be transacted, and your leaders meet to deliberate on the progress of this nation, we pray your guidance upon them. We realize that in the realm of the Spirit, that there are demon forces that are sent out to influence the minds of our leaders, to make decisions that are contrary to the plan and purposes of Almighty God. And tonight, we arrest every demonic influence that is released to influence our leaders. We subject them to the authority of Jesus Christ, and we declare that the very angelic beings of heaven will ward off every negative influence and allow the guidance of the Holy Spirit to be honored in the meeting today. We commit all the leaders, all those who will be deliberating, the entire audience into your hand, and we declare that the will of God be done in this meeting this evening. This we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
You may have your seats. Just as Brother Hazrat Ali declared angelic beings to descend and ward off evil spirits, we declare this meeting open. We declare, as the national anthem said, every creed and race find an equal place. When I look at this crowd, when you're hundreds, what do I see? Every creed and every race gathered in this auditorium. Great is the PNM. At last count, there were 10 active political parties and 69 defunct political parties in Trinidad and Tobago. DLP, UNC, NAR, COP, Motion, Fargo House. But there has been one constant since 1956, and that constant is the People's National Movement. We have fought every election, every general election, every by-election, every local government election. We are here for you in opposition. We are here for you in government. We are here for you in good times, bad times. We are here. We are the constant. To kick off this afternoon's meeting, I would like to welcome my good friend, former Member of Parliament, former Minister, and now the Chairman of the San Juan Laventille Regional Corporation, Alderman Anthony Roberts.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Terence Dialsing, Master of Ceremonies, for this evening's political meeting. The Honourable Fitz-Gerald Hinds, Member of Parliament for Laventille West and Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs. The Honourable Camille Robinson Regis, Member of Parliament for Aruka Maloney. And the Minister of Planning and Development. Councillor Terry Rondon, Chairman of the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation. Aldermen and the councillors of the San Juan Laventille Regional Corporation. Members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure for me to extend words of welcome on behalf of the chairman and the executive members of the constituency of Barataria San Juan, and by extension, the People's National Movement. To all of you who came out here this evening in your numbers to our meeting. My friends, the by-election date was announced by our political leader and Prime Minister, Dr. the Honourable Keith Christopher Rowley. And those of us who are not aware of the date is the 16th of July, 2018. That is the date. The reason for these by-elections, ladies and gentlemen, in Belmont East and Barataria are not what we cherished. As two of our dedicated, committed and hard-working soldiers fell in the line of duty. But such is life. And as we mourn their passing, ladies and gentlemen, and at the same time we are very appreciative of the work they have done for the burgesses within their electoral district. They have left us a strong legacy, and may God continue to bless their souls. My friends, life goes on and the work has to continue. And so we have this by-elections. The People's National Movement has selected its candidates. Ms. Nicole Young, who is with us. And Ms. Nicole Young is elected to contest the Belmont East seat in Port of Spain. And we have our own Ms. Kimberly Small. Kimberly is small in name and size, but massive in stature. Both young women, let me say it slowly, because we have no doubt. Both young women, ladies and gentlemen, are committed and very dedicated to the duty of continuing the legacy left by the both gentlemen. We understand local government is about providing and delivering services to our burgesses within the respective communities. the primary services that local government have responsibility for, and let me give you a short lesson in local government. The development and maintenance of our recreational facilities, the development and maintenance of the local roads within our communities. And I say local roads because the main roads are the responsibilities of the Ministry of Works. The development and maintenance of the local drains. And I say the local drains, the little drains that will pass along the streets within your community and to the back of your homes within the respective communities, because the Ministry of Works and Drainage Department has responsibility for the major drains within the particular regions or the city of Port-of-Spain. Local government has responsibility for the development and the maintenance of cemeteries, the development and maintenance of markets, and general sanitation within the municipalities. And so, having said that, ladies and gentlemen, you will immediately accept that local government representative must have an intimate relationship with the communities that they serve. Because you see, these communities and the issues that I have just identified will impact daily on the work of the local government representative. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the People's National Movement as a party and as a government recognize and accept that the system that we now operate in local government is inadequate. Inadequate to meet the needs to deliver the services required by the people. And so has placed high on its priority the reform of local government system. This is an initiative, ladies and gentlemen. It is an initiative to which we wholeheartedly accept. And I am certain that during this campaign, we are going to find some time to explore in greater details the reform agenda. And so, ladies and gentlemen, allow me the opportunity to really, truly welcome you this evening to this meeting and to thank you for your interest and your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alderman Roberts. Folks, tonight, this is the People's National Movement. This is a platform of truth. This is a platform of decency. This is a platform where you will be educated. This is a platform where you will be informed. And I think right now, we would like to welcome the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Please stand while we welcome and wait for the arrival of the Honourable Dr. Christopher Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. He is being welcomed by the sounds of Tassa drums. They're playing a hand for him. In Tassa, he is playing a hand. And as a Tassa player myself, I know what that means. And you can hear the Tassa drums reaching a crescendo as we seek to welcome the Honourable Prime Minister to our midst, accompanied by dancers. And there he is, the Honourable Dr. Christopher Rowley. You cannot have a PNM meeting without TASA. This is not the PNM if you don't have a hand of TASA. Thank you very much. And I know my Prime Minister is a great lover of TASA. So as I was saying, on a PNM platform, you will hear the truth. You will hear facts. And tonight our battery of speakers is led by none other than the greatest teller of truths, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. He will be ably supported by his Minister of Finance, the Honourable Colm Imbert, and equally supported by the Honourable Fitz-Gerald Hinds. And as I look out into this crowd, I see people in red. I see young, I see old, I see red. The color of energy, the color of heat, and we put in heat in the place. Fire and heat. At this time, I would like to recognize some people in the audience. The Honorable Camille Robertson-Regis, my leader in the House. Member for Aruka Maloney, sporting her new hairstyle. Yay! The Honorable Nyan Gatsby Dolly. The Honorable Glenda Jennings-Smith from Toko Sangre Grande. I will also like to recognize the former Deputy Mayor of the city of Port of Spain, Mr. Rishi Lakan. Also want to recognize Mr. Indar Parasram. And our newly minted Minister of Communications, Mr. Stuart Young. But this is about local government. So I want to recognize Mr. Terry Rondon, all chairmen of corporations, all councillors, all aldermen. You are the backbone of our delivery system. And from a grateful country, we say thank you. There's one special person to recognize, and Dr. Rowley, this is a very special person. I want to recognize in the audience Miss Joyce Small, who joined the People's National Movement on March 31st, Dr. Rowley, 1956. Miss Joyce Small is now 92 years young. I know your business. 92 years young. But the PNM is about continuity and always recognizing the contributions made by people like Miss Small. But the regeneration continues, and her granddaughter is your candidate for Barataria. Your candidate, Kimberly Small. And I also want to recognize Nicole Young from Belmont East. And before we introduce our next speaker, we have to recognize two people who were called to duty, served, but unfortunately their work was not finished. But these two people will continue their work. We need to recognize former councillors Punel Bruno for Barataria, and we need to recognize former councillor Daryl Rajpaul for Belmont East. Friends, our next speaker is somebody called Mr. Fitz-Gerald Ethelbert Hinds. But how do I introduce him? I will introduce him from a saying from somebody called Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, who said, and I quote, "Democracy finally rests on a higher power than Parliament. It rests on an informed and cultivated and alert public opinion. What you saw in the Parliament last night was Mr. Fitz-Gerald Ethelbert Hinds, who was appointed by the Honourable Prime Minister to be the chairman of a special select committee. And he led the charge last night to protect your democracy. He led the charge last night to safeguard this country's interests. And in the best traditions of parliamentary democracy, he took it to the opposition. With that, Let us heartily welcome the Member of Parliament for Laventille West, Mr. Fitz-Gerald, Hinds.
Out comes the sun, shining on my face again. Grades get me high, high so I can meditate. Dreams of brighter days. Highest grades we blaze.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Selector, what a beautiful one. Thank you very much. My brother and friend, the Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, Minister of Health, thank you very much for your kind introduction in your capacity as Master of Ceremonies of these very beautiful PNM proceedings here in Barataria. My other cabinet and parliamentary colleagues, led of course by the very distinguished political leader and Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honourable Christopher Rowley. Let me in that spirit recognize Madam Camille Robinson-Regis, my brother Stuart Young, Minister Nyan Gatsby-Dolly, and of course, party officers, among whom is Madam Joan Yule Williams, our deputy political leader, the chairman of the Samoa Laventille Regional Corporation, who addressed us and welcomed us so beautifully a moment ago, Mr. Anthony Roberts, all the local government representatives in the House and the candidates who will take the mantle up where others left off, the council members of the Samoa Laventille Regional Corporation, party members generally, members of the media, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, including, of course, all the listeners and viewers in radio and TV land across Trinidad and Tobago and the world. Barbados, a small island state a few miles from here, had an elections just about 3 weeks or so ago. The outgoing Prime Minister, Juan Frondel Stewart, was replaced by the incoming Mia Motley. I understand from my readings and observation that the economy was the big issue in Barbados. I'm fully aware that within the last 2 years, the Barbadian government had to relieve approximately 3,000 public servants of the 26,000 on their payroll, because based on economic circumstances, they did that to save 140 million Barbadian dollars per year. As soon as Mia Motley came to office, a few days later, as you would have read yourselves, the country has gone into the embrace of the IMF program for its recovery. I remember our Prime Minister, our very distinguished leader, returning to Trinidad from a Heads of Government, CARICOM Heads of Government conference some time ago, and telling us in the cabinet that one of the things that touched him very deeply was a breakfast, I think it was, with 3 or 4 of his counterparts who would lead other islands in the region. And among the things he would learn is that in those cases, those prime ministers would meet almost on a daily basis with their Minister of Finance, with the clerk of the peace of the court, to see what he collected in terms of fines the day before. The folks down at the Inland Revenue who will tell them what they collected, all of that on a daily basis, before they could decide what they could spend in that economy each day. When he told us that, it struck me of other people's realities. And I thank God in my heart that we hadn't gotten to that point. However, I have become aware that my Prime Minister meets with his Minister of Finance at least every Monday morning to get a briefing, not for those extreme reasons. Let us welcome the man I've just spoken. Not for those extreme reasons, but just to ensure that together they steer this country skillfully and delicately and carefully along a very treacherous path. And today, after 2 years and approximately 8 months, we could thank God, no IMF. We could thank God that we have stabilized the economy of Trinidad and Tobago from the turbulence that we met. And you would have heard on diverse occasions what we met. We could thank God that we have had no massive layoff of jobs. Most of you have been able to keep your jobs so you get your weekly, fortnightly, or monthly incomes to deal with your children, to deal with your families, to deal with your mortgages. Don't take it for granted, ladies and gentlemen. There are many countries where the circumstances are markedly different. The very rich, oil-rich and gas-rich Venezuela next door is the best testimony of that. 2 years and 8 months or so later, not a single one of my ministerial colleagues could be justifiably accused of putting our hands in the public till. Not one. And 2 years and 8 months later, I had the joy, the pleasure of seeing the hard-working, deep-thinking Minister of Finance under the leadership of the very wise and experienced Prime Minister say to the country, thank God, I can see clearly now. We're not out of the woods. We're not out of the woods, but we can see clearly now. This didn't come by chance. It would have come as a result of tremendous hard work, dedication to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and as I indicated at least on 2 occasions, the steady, dignified, serious leadership of our political leader. Rastafari. So we say so far, so good. But all of that could not happen on its own without the understanding and patient citizenry that you, Trinidad and Tobago, have been. Because you are accustomed to a very high standard of living. You've had to make adjustments. So let us congratulate ourselves. You have been understanding, you have been patient. Tonight, I want to speak to you and the young people across Trinidad and Tobago who are listening to us a little bit about crime, because this is proving to be one of the major challenges that we are facing as a government. This is a source of deep pain and concern to us because we see, we hear, we read, we experience the bleeding, the trauma, the discomfort that the people of Trinidad and Tobago are experiencing at the hands of a few who choose to make crime a way of life, and who rather than work hard, get skills, get qualification, engage in businesses, small, medium, or large, to earn an income, they choose to prey on the weak and on soft targets. It is proving to be a major challenge for us. That the government is responsible for the safety, security, and in that sense, well-being of the people of Trinidad and Tobago is not in dispute. That the crime situation is a burdensome and challenging experience for all of us, that too is not in dispute. The crime is no longer associated with East Port of Spain, particularly the constituency that I represent. It has now spread all over Trinidad and Tobago, and some of the most horrific incidents are reported day by day. What then is our responsibility? In the Parliament, we pass laws. Some we can pass on our own without the support of the other side. Some we would need their support, and very often when we seek that support, it is not forthcoming. We have to prize it out of them. But we have pledged to continue working in your best interest, and we make adjustments as we could, because to do the job, we must do it, and we will do it with or without their support. But we recognize sensibly that it is only the police service that could do this job, Because we could preach from the platform, preach from the cabinet, preach from the parliament, in tone where we have to do what we want. At the end of the day, the only organization paid and sworn and with the responsibility to do the job of protecting you and I from crime, stand between you and I and the criminals, is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. A couple days ago, we proclaimed the anti-gang law. On that occasion, we pleaded with them for a second or third time to give us support, not for our sake, for your sake, because we don't talk for ourselves. We could defend ourselves, some of us. I can. But for you, we pleaded with them, and finally, after much ado, we got their support, and we passed the anti-gang law. The police said they wanted it, and all right-thinking citizens understood it. This law criminalizes membership of gangs in a way it wasn't done before. Well, it was before, and then, well, of course, the law expired in 2016. The UNC mucked about in the parliament until we passed it again recently. And as I said, we proclaimed it. It criminalizes leadership of gangs, where two or more persons come together for some criminally defined purposes. That is a gang. 25 years for law enforcement officers who participate in gang activity, and some have done in the past, and some do, not just in Trinidad, everywhere. 30 years if you wound or shoot a police officer. 25 years if you force, coerce, or encourage persons to become gang members. 25, 30 years for retaliatory offenses. Right now I know of a case where a gentleman learned who killed a member of his family, and he is now under threat. They are threatening him because he saw, a couple hours ago, we saw another citizen killed. The story is that he witnessed a murder. It happened again in Tunapuna last week. Very frequent. 30 years for retaliatory action for that sort of thing. 10 years for harboring a gang member. 15 years for concealing one. 20 years for recruiting. And the law states very clearly the evidence that must be produced to satisfy the court to convict on those offenses. Arrest without warrant in certain circumstances. Forfeiture of property if convicted for a gang offense. Some of these offenses, ladies and gentlemen, include possession of firearms, coercing or encouraging gang membership, possession of bulletproof vests, recruiting a gang member, demanding money with menaces, murder, shooting or wounding, possession of firearm and ammunition, trafficking in dangerous drugs, all of the sexual offenses, rape, sexual assault, kidnapping for ransom or kidnapping simpliciter, offenses under the Anti-Terrorism Act, offenses relating to dangerous drugs under the Children's Act, procuration for the purposes of prostitution, living off the earnings of prostitution, meeting a child following sexual grooming. These are some of the offenses that are caught up in the anti-gang law. Stringent legislation. It should really have been accompanied with a stringent bail bill where if you are charged for a gang offense, you would not have received bail under 60 days if your matter did not begin in the court. But the UNC indicated in everything they said and done that they will not give us that support. So we have the anti-gang law and we are making the best of it. But on the other hand, with all of that stringent law, with all of those sentences, no member of the government could tell a magistrate or a judge what sentence to apply. And you would have seen recent cases. The police spend hours doing surveillance work, undercover work, getting information, building a case. They move in. They find someone with ammunition and drugs, and they go to court. Magistrates have fined people $2,500 for a gun, when the information is that they cost about $7,000 on the black market. Millions of dollars in cocaine, some little slap on the wrist, And I can only ask on your behalf to the judiciary, we need to have a better sentencing policy so that when the police carry out their work, they would not be frustrated by these pats on the wrist and the criminal walk away laughing to get the next victim and make addicts of your children with their dangerous drugs. A magistrate could give up to 10 years in jail. They seldom do. And of course, the bigger sentences that I spoke about, judges can do that. We need swifter court proceedings and of course, stiffer sentences by the courts. Send a clear message to criminals. These matters we have no control over as a government. All we could do is provide resources to the judiciary and call on them to do, as I have just done, what we expect them to do. I saw a young man in today's papers begging for mommy when they sent his little self to jail for 510 days. So many of our young people are so easily misled. 2 police officers approach him. I'm calling on the young people across Trinidad and Tobago to think, conduct yourselves with some good behavior and order. You don't have to be like that, because when you get sent to the calaboose, you hear him shouting, mommy, mommy, like a big baby today. I'm sure you read it. So I'm asking you young people in this hall tonight and across this country to brace up. There are so many opportunities available for you and to you, starting with a sound education program at no direct cost to you or your family. A guarantee of tertiary level education once you qualify for it. Small means test today. As we speak, the cabinet recognizing that many senior citizens in particular have been victims of criminals who literally throw them out the house. I know many houses in my own constituency and across this country where they firebomb somebody, can't frighten the people have to flee. And once the house becomes unoccupied, or the person goes to America for 2 months, when they come back, criminals in there, and nobody can do anything about it. And when they go to the police telling them about, to some extent, naturally so, about deed, and you have to prove ownership and all these complications. The Prime Minister, seeing that, told us in the Office of the Attorney General to prepare legislation to make it a criminal offense. So if you're in somebody's house and you don't have deed, when the police come, they can arrest you and take you to the criminal court, and you'll be met with 5 years jail if they had to. That is what we have done. And that matter is receiving the immediate attention of the cabinet and hopefully to be passed into law for your protection. Electronic monitoring, that law was passed since 2012, I think it was. And they have dilly-dallied with it. Well, we came to office, we got a hold of it, polished it up. We employed the people in the electronic monitoring unit, and we have put them to work. You may have seen on the television, I brought them before me in my Joint Select Committee on National Security and grilled them and drilled them and urged them to get the job done. We expect to see this, because electronic monitoring will mean, rather than pack up people in the jail, we could put on an electronic bracelet and we could control where they could go. So you women who are particularly the victims of domestic violence, we could control them without having to feed them in the prison. And if they go outside of the space, an alarm goes off, the police will be on the scene, and back inside they go. We amended the DNA legislation, and we just settled the DNA regulations. I can tell you, citizens, all the time since we passed that law in 2005, the forensic science and the crime scene experts have been collecting data, stains, samples on crime scenes, and they've been storing them. Now that we have spruced up the law, and now that we have put the regulations in place, and I can tell you proudly, on the urging of the Prime Minister, through the Minister of National Security and the Office of the Attorney General, we have now procured the kits and the equipment and the swabs, and we are ready to roll. And we can go now to the prison and take the DNA samples involuntarily from prisoners of certain categories and all persons who are suspects in the hands of the police in police stations. And that way we will build up a data bank. And we'll have more people on the bank. So the samples we get from crime scenes could start matching with those, and we could identify criminals using the best scientific methods to make the job of detecting crime easier. All of this requires, as you would understand, an effective, smooth-running, well-oiled, well-motivated police service. Because as I told you, it is only the police who can do this work, much as we would like to do otherwise. It is only the police. They have to investigate crime. They have to prosecute people for crimes, bring them before the court. In 2012, when we were in opposition, again my leader summoned the government, led by the Prime Minister, and we offered them, Camille Robinson-Regis, myself, Dale Singh, and a couple others. We approached the then government with a 10-point plan. The first 2 items on that, we told them, you have our support. Anything you bring to the parliament to make more efficient and to make smoother and swifter the hiring of a police commissioner, my leader told them, you have our support. They did nothing about it. We would discover in our inquiries, of course. They came to office in 2010. They left in 2015. They did not amend the order to hire the commissioner, and they did not embark on a procedure. It took our government, when we came to office in September of 2015, by December of 2015, we amended the order of the court, and we said, the president, and we said it is time to recruit a police commissioner. And when we did that, Madam Kamla Prasad Bisesa, senior counselor she is, don't discuss how she gets it, but she have it. She took that matter to court personally, challenging the constitutionality of the order as it was drafted. And Mr. Justice Rajkumar, sitting in the High Court, agreed that there were elements. There was one element of it in particular where the Minister of National Security had to indicate to the Police Service Commission, you should begin the process to recruit a commissioner. The court found that the government should have no dealing or contact with that and excised that part to make it constitutionally sound. So it was as soon as we came to government, we did that. And then the Police Service Commission, after the court's judgment and the restructuring of the order, began the process to recruit a commissioner. And you would have seen last night, as we displayed, thank God the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition agreed that we should have a special select committee to look into this matter. Previously, the Service Commission was a cloistered virtue in an air-conditioned room someplace. Nobody would have known how they arrived at what they arrived at. On this occasion, we were able to look inside of the process, and we saw a number of flaws that we outlined. People who did not apply for the position of commissioner ended up being top of the list for commissioner. When the law says the assessment should be done by a firm called KPMG, the Police Service Commission was involved in the assessment along with KPMG. And when the results of that assessment became known, the law says you should pass that assessment result to the Police Service Commission on its own for its deliberate judgment to decide the order of merit list. The list that the Police Service Commission and the firm concocted in that process with all kinds of issues. The Police Service Commission, getting it again, overturned it. Persons who were number 11 end up at number 3. Persons who were number 2 end up at number 11, all kind of kankatang. And I take no joy in it because it gives Fitz-Gerald, Hinds, and it gives this government no joy. This is a national failure. We need a commissioner of police. The law was clear. We have a service commission in office, professional people, law, business, all kinds of skills. It records as a national failure. That is a matter for the president. The bottom line is we have to send it back to the very service commission And as the Prime Minister told the country last night, we are going to review the order, because now, as distinct from when that order was established in 2015, we have now seen best practice recruitment for commissioner and deputies in other parts of the world, and we have promised to review it to make it more in keeping with modern standards. Would you believe? They recruited a commissioner and deputies for you, and not one of them was polygraphed. But the law requires best practice security vetting. That clearly, to my mind, is a breach of the law. Because what they did could never equate with best practice. Never. So we could not support that. We took the positions we took last night. It may inconvenience some, but we do it in the public interest and with good governance in mind. The other thing we did, when we were in opposition, in addition to telling them they have our support for the appointment of a commissioner, whatever form it came, we also told them in that 10-point plan, number 2 on the agenda, you need to conduct a manpower audit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. They're always saying they're understaffed, and we know that there are certain skill sets that are now required: forensic accounting, forensic auditing, all kinds of skills a modern police organization deserves and demands to function effectively in this time. So we told them a manpower audit was critical. What did Kamla Prasad and her hosts do? Nothing. It took my Prime Minister, as soon as we came to office, he established a manpower audit committee led by Professor Ramesh Deosaran, a number of top-level thinkers, academics, and former permanent secretary. And they went to work in the police service. They went to Tobago, they went high, they went low, they interviewed police officers, they garnered statistics, they spent months. They asked for an extension, we gave them that. They produced the report. And to the Prime Minister's credit, as it was produced, he forwarded it to the Parliament because he wanted the Parliament to be involved in this. This is not a government thing. This is not a PNM thing. This is a national concern. The police organization is important to every one of us because after God is police. You travel every day, you go to sleep every day. The day they tell you it wouldn't have a police in town, you're staying home. Bad as they are, complain as you do. And I want to take the opportunity to sincerely congratulate the men and women of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Because this society could never pay them for the work they do. Not all are the best things in sliced bread. And that very police service have to purge them out. Because the police service has a soul, it has an aura. And the aura and the soul of the police service don't need no criminal. It don't need no backsliders. It needs honesty, integrity, hard work, dedication, and patrioticness. And so, the matter of the manpower audit report is before the Joint Select Committee on National Security. I'm happy to inform you, Honourable Political Leader and Prime Minister, I'm happy to inform Trinidad and Tobago that in keeping with the swift trend that you demanded, we are just about to issue the report of the Joint Select Committee on that matter, and within a week or two, it will be on the Parliament's desk, sir. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I told you, the police organization is the only organization to deal with this problem. So it is our duty, the 160 plus first division officers and the 7,000 or so second division officers from inspector down. It is our duty to provide them with the resources they need, to provide them with the equipment they need, to provide them with the training they need. The Prime Minister, as chairman of the National Security Council, and other members of that council meet regularly with the leadership of the police service and even other ranks and encourage them to come on up, do the business, get highly motivated in the protection of the citizens of this country. That is our job, and that we will do. Thank you very much, my dear lady. We all work very, very hard. That we will do. They have to be highly motivated to fight crime. The whole thing, the police is just a small part. We at the Office of the Attorney General, we are concerned about the entire criminal justice system, starting with the police, through the courts, into the prisons, and yes, and for rehabilitation in there. It's a continuum. The police is just a small part of that. The Office of the DPP is equally critical. They too were claiming to be short on resources. Since we have come to government, we have provided office location in Tobago, office location, better accommodation in San Fernando, and looking for a better place in Port of Spain. We provide them with the resources they need so that the Office of the DPP, which has criminal prosecutions as its mandate, will do that. We are in the process of establishing a special division of the High Court called the Criminal Division. You'll have specialist courts dealing with various types of criminal matters, specialist judges, criminal masters, and criminal rules, all designed to make the system swifter as we go forward. But before I close, I must tell you, all of that is fine. But every single individual, and it takes a little courage to say this, because if I said this in the parliament, those non-thinking people opposite would say, you're blaming the people and it's your responsibility. What rubbish. What rubbish. The citizens, every single one of us, have to take some personal care. You can't be walking around flaunting things so that people will make you an easy target. You have to secure yourself. Be very watchful. The police tell you that. Be very careful. You have a role to play. And most of all, when you see wrongdoing, I know it's challenging because they're killing people and killing witnesses. But as we improve the system, that will become less of a problem. But if you see something, you should find someone who you can trust and share it, because crime don't like darkness. Crime don't like light. It enjoys darkness and secrecy and silence. So ladies and gentlemen, when we dealt with that matter as I close in the parliament, I was on my way here tonight. And I was not astounded because I know the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. I was not happy though to hear a citizen of this country claiming to be a pundit, blaming what transpired in the parliament yesterday on the sour business of race. I want to say two things. Every student of sociology will know they have a chapter in textbook called race and race relations. That is not a matter that is unknown to human beings. If you can discuss the matter dispassionately and intellectually, nothing is wrong. We all do that. But I was a little bit perturbed last night. So I just want to, for the benefit of the citizens, to say all that we did, as we did when Mr. Williams was rejected back in, I think, 2008 or thereabout, we do it with no consideration of race and in the best public interest. When you read, if you get access to the details, it's all in the parliament, the Hansard is there. You will see the painstaking process we went through to get to the bottom of it, and at the bottom of it, we saw flaws that were fatal to the process, and the PNM in your interest stood on the principle of what is right. I would like to thank you very much. I would like to encourage you to continue to be patient, continue to support your government, disregard wholeheartedly what those wicked, deceitful, treacherous people must say. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. And we will always prevail. I thank you.
Let's hear it for Fitz-Gerald, Imbert, Hinds. Ladies and gentlemen, there is standing room only. You are here in your hundreds and in your thousands. Look at you, looking beautiful. You have a sold-out crowd. We could have sold out this auditorium 10 times, and the crowd is growing by the minute. I would like to recognize in their absence Deputy Political Leader Mr. Rohan Sinanan, doing the work in the Senate. Deputy Political Leader Ms. Marlene MacDonald. I would like to recognize in the audience Deputy Political Leader Joan Yule Williams. I would like to recognize Chief Secretary Kelvin Charles and all members of the Tobago House of Assembly. At this time, this is a local government flavored meeting. I want to ask all local government councillors, past and present, to please stand for a round of applause. Let us see you. Let us thank you. All local government councillors, past and present, please stand up. Thank you, and thank you. The banner behind me goes on the path to progress. And because we have some two young green shoots of the PNM taking up the mantle, we have to educate you a little bit. Because the next speaker is the current Minister of Finance. But in bringing some education to you, like I did earlier with Dr. Eric Williams, he is following in the footsteps of two excellent former Ministers of Finance. One held two portfolios, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Mr. George Michael Chambers. He is also following in the footsteps of another brilliant Minister of Finance, one Mr. Wendell Motley. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to hear from a man. A man, when he came into office, found money for 3 days to run this country. 3 days, not 3 weeks, not 3 months, not 3 years, but 3 days, because the UNC squandered everything. What have been his achievements today? He has steadied the economy. He has paid public servants every single month. He paid 14% arrears to public servants when oil went to $27 a barrel. That was what this Minister of Finance did. He balanced the books. Even though we withdrew from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, that fund is so well managed that what we withdrew was made up and more by interest. Excellent management. Inflation is low. And the biggest accomplishment, we have not gone to the International Monetary Fund. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend. It is my pleasure to ask you to welcome him to the podium. He is not going to talk to you outside. He is not going to talk to you on the left side. He's not going to talk to you on the right side. He's going to talk to you on the inside of the Barataria Community Centre. Please welcome the Honourable Colm Imbert.
Thank you, Minister Dayal Singh. Member of Parliament for St. Joseph. Dr. the Honourable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West and political leader of the People's National Movement. My cabinet colleague, Mr. Fitz-Gerald Hinds, the chairman of the Samuel Lavantil Regional Corporation, executive members of the party, other cabinet colleagues too numerous to mention, members of local government bodies, deputy political leaders, party supporters, the media, thank you so much. This is a big meeting. I was surprised. People standing outside in the road. All right. We have a by-election to win, so we'll keep that spirit up. And I want to correct Mr. Dayal Singh. It's not 3 days money we had, it's 2 days. It's 2 days. And before I get into my speech, let me just reiterate some numbers that the other side, they just don't like us to talk about these things. But I want to keep reinforcing the problems we found ourselves in. And I brought with me a table which is the actual collection of petroleum tax in Trinidad and Tobago from the year 2012 right up to 2017. And in 2012, when oil was riding high, the total collection of tax from the oil sector was $16 billion. In 2014, it was $17 billion. As oil prices started to collapse in the middle of 2015, it dropped from $17 billion in 2014 down to $10.5 billion in 2015. But check what happened in 2016. Remember these other people, they had oil revenue in the order of 15 billion, 16 billion, 17 billion per year. Look at what we face in the first year, fiscal 2016, from October 2015 to September 2016, the first 12 months of the PNM government. It went from 17 billion to 1.03 billion dollars. You understand the kind of issue we found ourselves in? And that is just tax from oil. Tax went down from everything else because we are an energy-driven economy, gas-based, oil-based economy. So once the revenue from oil and gas goes down, the revenue from the rest of the economy goes down. So I'm just talking oil. From $17 billion in taxes in oil in 2014 to $1 billion in 2016 and $1.1 billion in 2017. So the first 2 years of this PNM government, the money we got from oil was $2 billion. The last 2 years of their government, the money they got from oil was almost $30 billion. So their 2 years, their 2014 and 2015, they get almost $30 billion from oil. Our first 2 years, we get 2. And that is what we have had to deal with. It has not been easy. And that is why we had to do some of the things that we had to do. We had to reduce expenditure. We cut down expenditure from 60 billion down to 50 billion. When we came in, they were spending $60 billion a year. They came in and they met the country spending 45. When PNM left office, the annual expenditure of the government was 45 billion. They carried up to 50, 55, carried up to 60. And they kept going, although the price of oil was crashing. We had to cut it back down to 50, and even 50 is not easy. It's not easy because I just explained to you. We lost $15 to $16 billion a year in oil revenue. Very, very, very difficult. But we've been managing. We've cut $10 billion out of public expenditure, and the country is still running. The country didn't collapse. You know why? Waste, corruption, and mismanagement. That was what was going on. How can you take $10 billion out of an economy and the country is still running? Obviously, they were thieving. That's the only thing I could say. I'm not supposed to use these words, and let me come off of that one time. Let me give you, I'm going to repeat some good news. That I spoke about in the mid-year review. Because the budget is for 12 months. So there's a tradition that after 6 months, which is the middle of the year, end of March, because our year starts at the beginning of October, after 6 months you do a review. And you look at what you expected to earn in terms of income. You look at what you expected to spend. So you look at taxes from oil companies, taxes from other companies, taxes from individuals, value-added tax, customs duty, business levy, royalty on oil, and so on. So we did a mid-year review as governments have done for the last 10 or 20 years. And the reason why I can say, and I said, and I will continue to say, that under this PNM government, I can see clearly now, is because
of these numbers. For the first 2 years, every time I did a mid-year review, things weren't looking good. For 2016, I went and I did a mid-year review. And if we were supposed to collect $25 billion by the middle of the year, we collect 15. If we were supposed to spend 25, we had to end up spending the same amount or just a little less. So it didn't look good. The income, the revenue that we expected to get just wasn't there. Because even though the price of oil began to recover, we just weren't getting the income from the oil companies. And that's another story. And that's why the Prime Minister set up a team dealing with that problem, where even though the price of oil is going up and gas production is going up, and I'll give you some numbers here now, gas production has gone up from 3 billion cubic feet a day to almost 4 billion cubic feet a day under the leadership of the team headed by the Prime Minister. Talking to Shell, talking to BP, talking to all the energy companies. Gas production has gone up by 25%. But we're not seeing the money in the treasury. And that's a different story, and that is for another forum or maybe for another speaker. So that when I looked at these figures in the mid-year in March of 2016, it didn't look good. When I looked at it in the mid-year of 2017, it looked bad, it looked worse. So we came along now to the mid-year of 2018. I said, let me see what we're seeing now. What we expected to collect in what we call current taxes, and current taxes is income tax, corporation tax, business levy, custom duty, value-added tax, royalty. That's what they call current revenue. We expected to collect $21.9 billion by April, and we ended up collecting $23.2 billion. The first time I ever saw those kind of numbers. So we were expecting to collect 21.9, we collect 23.2. And when I looked down, because you really have to try and understand what is going on, because the so-called economists and all those people who like to talk and bad talk this government, they don't like these numbers at all, you know. Because what these numbers show is competence. That's what they show. And we are not supposed to be competent. I heard the Prime Minister talking last night that that's the only thing they could say, that the PNM is not competent. So when they hear these numbers, they get a pressure. So that I looked very closely. So they will say, oh, that is just oil. The price of oil went up, so it's nothing that you did. I say, no problem. Let me take a look at the numbers. So for the projection for taxes from oil companies for the period from October to April was supposed to be 1.2 billion. We got 1.15 billion. So we didn't get as much as we were supposed to get. We were short about 50 billion. The taxes we were supposed to get from other companies, companies that are not oil and gas companies, was projected to be 3.8 billion. But here what? We get 4.8 billion. So what does that tell you? That the rest of the economy is picking up. Not the oil sector, because the revenue that we are getting from the rest of the economy, from other companies, is much more than we expect it to be. When I go through the numbers in all of them, things are looking much better than we expected them to look. But we're not out of the woods yet, and I want to explain what I mean by that. We still have a huge gap between this figure of current revenue, which is revenue from taxes and expenditure. We don't earn $50 billion, but you have to spend $50 billion. So this year we had projected to earn about $45 billion. 40 from taxes, 5 from the sale of assets, the CL Financial Solution, and borrow 5. So that even though revenue from taxation is looking better, we still have a big challenge this year, which is to get money from the sale of the CLICO assets. And I'll talk about that in a little while. But we also have to find other revenue streams. And one of the things this government did for the 5 years that they were in, trying to be popular, they waived something called property tax. And man, do they hate that property tax. I don't know why they hate it so. I don't know why. We went to the parliament recently, and we made some changes to the law to tighten up, because last year they had us in court for the whole year. For the whole of last year. Every time we move, they take us to court and they're challenging the Property Tax Act and the Valuation of Land Act. We spend 12 months in court, but we win all the case. So that's all right. But they slow us down for a whole year. It's all right. Well, the court has dealt with it. The court has adjudicated. We're continuing now with our program to collect property tax. And I don't know why they hate it so. And what you're seeing is organized political mischief. Now, let me give you an example. I saw a letter in the Newsday on the 2nd of June, that's Saturday last. And it headlined Property Tax Assessment. And here it is, the editor. I received a visit from the property tax assessors of the BIR, and I assure you it was not pleasant. I was alarmed by the questions and the information they were collecting. They wanted to know who was living there, whether the home had air conditioning or security cameras. They then proceeded to take measurement of every nook and cranny of the home. And this person goes on and on and on, essentially saying they don't trust this government, they don't trust the valuation division. And the person ends by putting their name, Listra Maraj of Glencoe. Smell a rat? Smell a rat? In the Prime Minister's Constitution, I didn't read that part. Let me read that part. I am waiting to see when they will select my neighbor, the Honourable Prime Minister, for a visit to his home here as well as in Tobago. She put that, Listra Maraj, Glencoe. I smell a rat. You know why I smell a rat? Because I'm keeping a regular check on the visits that the field officers of the Valuation Division are making to various parts of Trinidad with respect to valuation of property. And I know what district they're in. I know they're in Barataria, for example. I know that. I know that they're into Maraval in my constituency. I know that. But I know they're not in Glencoe. So I contact the property, the Valuation Division. I get in with a letter. I say, did you visit the home of Listra Maraj in Glencoe and measure every nook and cranny? So they check the database. They say the number of records with the name Listra, 206. Number of records with the name Listra in Glencoe, 0. Number of records with the name Maraj with a JH, 78. Number of records with the name Maraj in Glencoe, 0. Number of records with the name Listra Maraj in Glencoe, 0. That's all right. Maybe the name spelled wrong. Because you know you could spell Maraj M-A-R-A-J, M-A-H-A-R-A-J, and then this unusual spelling, M-A-R-A-J-A-J-H. I went and checked your name. They actually have names like that, eh? So I said, all right, maybe they get the name wrong. Maybe the newspapers, when they were printing the letter, it's supposed to be Listra Maharaj or Maraj. They misprint. That's all right. I asked them, did you do any property valuation in Glencoe? Hear what they say. No field inspections have been conducted in the Glencoe community. So not only it had nobody with this name who is in the database, but we have done no field visits to Glencoe. But the ladies say, I receive a visit. They took measurements of every nook and cranny of the home, and I hope they go by my neighbor, the Prime Minister. This is organized political mischief and vested interest. Why are they afraid of this property tax? I saw something on Facebook where they work out a family, a man, the head of the household, earning $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month. And they're going through the personal expenses. UNC put this on Facebook. Income 6,000, tax 5,000. And so they mortgage 2005. And they add up and put property tax 300. And the person will have no money at the end of the month. That's what they do, right? Food, transport, and so on. So they say this property tax will bust this person. But the first thing I do is I watch this thing carefully. I say, well, these are mad people. Because one of the first things this caring PNM government did when we came in is raise the personal allowance from 5,000 a month to 6,000 a month. This PNM did that. With that oil revenue dropping from 17 billion to 1, we gave up income tax to people earning a total of 72,000 a year or 6,000 a month. We raise it from 5,000 a month to 6,000 a month. So if you're earning 6,000 a month, you pay no tax. Zero. But this UNC thing, salary 6,000, tax 500, and so they go in. And they hit mortgage 2005. I say, So somebody earning 6,000 have a mortgage of $2,500? Which bank approved that? These people could lie. And then when I come down at the bottom now, I say property tax 300. I say, let me work that backwards. Because let me explain how the tax works. The tax is a percentage of the rental value. It's a percentage. So if you're paying $300 a month in property tax, when you work it out, the tax is 3% of the rental value. When you work it backwards, in order to pay property tax of $300 a month, guess what your rent had to be? $12,000 a month. $12,000 a month is what the rental value of your property has to be to pay a property tax of $300. But they say the person only earning 6,000. You think it's easy with these people? They're just trying to frighten people. One of the things I publicized recently was that if you are a recipient of senior citizens pension or disability grant or food card or your total income is equal to or less than senior citizens pension, you are not liable to pay property tax. So pensioners don't have to pay property tax. It's in the law. It's in the law. And that has been in the law since 2009. So if you are an old age pensioner, if you're on a disability grant, or if your income is 3.5 or less, you are not liable to pay property tax. But these wicked people going on about frightening pensioners and poor people. The average property tax for the average person will be about $100 a month. That's all. And the minimum, which is another huge group of people, will be $40 a month. $40 a month. But you see the nonsense these people talking and writing stupid letters like this in the papers? They're not easy, you know. They're not easy. But let me move on. Let me move on. Because there's a lot of mischief in the system. And I came across something recently, and I felt so ashamed as a minister and a parliamentarian. I felt so ashamed. I want to read something to you. We've had some problems with our water taxis. Before we left office, the PNM government ordered 4 brand new water taxis. The purpose for these water taxis is 2 of them were supposed to go between San Fernando and Port of Spain. So as one would leave Port of Spain in the morning, the other one would leave San Fernando in the morning and they would cross. So you would have 2 running up and down Port of Spain to San Fernando. So you could keep a regular schedule, say every 2 or 3 hours, a water taxi is going up and down between San Fernando and Port of Spain. The 3rd water taxi was to allow us to open up Chagaramas. So the 3rd water taxi was supposed to go from Port of Spain to Chagaramas. because we had a UTT campus down there, and we also wanted to develop that area. The fourth water taxi was supposed to go to Point 14. So you would have 4 water taxis, one from San Fernando to Point 14 and back, 2 running from San Fernando to Port of Spain, and 1 running from Port of Spain down to Diego Martin. That was the whole, that's why we buy 4. But the water taxis came just around the time of the general election. In fact, I believe they came about a month afterwards. And that scamp Jack Warner, but there are some bold-faced people in that other government, yes? The man take delivery of his water taxis. The water taxis that the PNM government design and pay for, he take delivery of his water taxis. But it didn't last long in that transport ministry. You know what they do? They mash up one. So they try to take parts from one and put it in the next 3. So end up with 3. Next thing, one catch a fire. Next thing, they say, well, the one that catch a fire, the next one have a similar problem. So all of a sudden, we were down to 1 water taxi. So people were complaining. So we say, well, let me check that. So we ask NIDCO, what's going on? What's the problem? So they said, well, we're having all kind of issues with maintenance and the engines and so on. So I say, well, who maintaining the engines? They say a company called MTU. So it's a German company. So let me give you a German company made the engines, not maintaining them. They are the manufacturer, MTU. So I say, let me get a report. So listen to this. When the water taxi service took possession of the high-speed water taxis in 2010, they engaged a third party to maintain the commercial engines. The company that they first engaged, local company, was a company called Trintrac, well-known local company. But under the UNC, all of a sudden, they decided there was a problem with Trintrac. So they changed the agent for the engines to a company called SVF International, a Venezuelan company. But they began to have problems with this Venezuelan company. So they say, let me try something else. And out of the blue, a Trinidadian company joined up with SVF from Venezuela and made a company called SVF Trinidad and Tobago. And they were the local agent to service the engines on the water taxis since November 2014. Listen to these dates. This joint venture between a Trinidadian company and a Venezuelan company called SVF, the joint venture is called SVF Trinidad and Tobago, has been maintaining the water taxi engines for the government since November 2014. But let me tell you who the local company is. Local company is a company called Tropical Power Limited. And let me go into the records now and tell you who the owner of Tropical Power was in 2010. I have the annual returns of Tropical Power Limited. I have here the annual return dated 12th of February 2010. And I have the shareholders of Tropical Power. And the shareholders of Tropical Power is another company called Tropical Power Holdings Limited and an individual called Stephen Cadiz. That's why I say I feel ashamed. I feel ashamed. Let me go back to the report from NIDCO. A red flag has been raised with respect to the company that has been maintaining the water taxi engines since November 2014 because Mr. Stephen Cadiz was Minister of Transport between September 2013 and June 2015 and was therefore the line minister for the water taxi service at the time that SVF Trinidad and Tobago, a joint venture between Tropical Power and SVF International was formed. I have all the records here, you know. I have all the records here. So, what y'all make of that? The man was the Minister of Transport. When he went into government, he put his son to run the company, and he transferred his shares to his wife. And that company got the contract to maintain the engines for the water taxis and an activity under the Ministry of Transport while he was the Minister of Transport. And if you go now to the annual returns for 2018, guess who's back in the company? Stephen Cadiz. And that company is also maintaining the engines for 6 of the Coast Guard's fast patrol craft. That is why I'm telling you, I feel ashamed, because let me tell you something. The 6 fast patrol craft were purchased under the Manning administration from Austal in Australia. And the 6 fast patrol craft arrived in Trinidad and Tobago just before the general election of 2015. And guess how many of those 6 fast patrol craft are working now? None. None. But based on the information given to me by the Ministry of National Security, the agent for the engines for those 6 fast patrol craft is this company. So they have the agency for the engines for the 4 water taxis and the 6 fast patrol craft. I don't want to say any more about this. I just feel ashamed about all of this. I feel ashamed. Let's move on now to some more serious matters, or let's some more positive matters. That matter will go where it has to go, and will be dealt with by those who deal with those things. But let me give you an idea of what your government is doing for you. Remember last year they had us in court whole year with the CLICO assets as well? Now let me repeat what went on there. The government, the Manning government, bailed out CL Financial and CLICO in 2009 and 2010. Bailed out CL Financial and CLICO. The incoming government continued with the bailout, and by the time we came in, $23 billion plus of taxpayers' money had been pumped into CL Financial and CLICO. And after almost 7 years, the government had recovered virtually nothing. The matter was supposed to be settled since 2012. It wasn't. There was an agreement between the CLICO shareholders and the government that all the money would be repaid by 2012. It wasn't. So what they did is they kept extending the agreement between the CLICO shareholders and the government. And every 6 months, every 3 months, they extend it, they extend it, they extend it. So when we came in, I found that this agreement that they would sell the assets of the CL group to pay back taxpayers had been extended 16 times. So this thing had been going on for 7 years, and no progress had been made. And there were no security over the assets as well. So we decided that it would give the CL shareholders a deadline, because this thing can't go on forever. Oil has dropped to $27 from 100. Revenue from petroleum has dropped from 17 billion down to 1. The country is under pressure. $23 billion of taxpayers' money gone into CLICO. We decided we have to give them a deadline, that they have to start paying back the taxpayers of this country to balance the budget while we start to build the economy again. So they decided, rather than cooperating with us, they would throw us out of the arrangement. So we end up in court. So we end up in court for the whole of last year. But we were successful. We have gone to the High Court, the Court of Appeal. It even went all the way to the Privy Council, and we were successful. So we've been able to bring back some order and bring back some control. So there is a court-appointed liquidator in charge of the assets of CL Financial. And you've heard me speak about the National Investment Fund. But let me explain to you what it is. We are taking all of those assets that were in the CLICO group, mainly Republic Bank, shares in Whitco, shares in One Caribbean Media, by the way, that's the Express and TV6. The government now owns 23% of the Express and TV6, just to let you all know. I think you all need to know that. The government or government entities now own 26% of Republic Bank, and we own a suitable percentage of West Indian Tobacco. We also own 100% of a company called Trinidad Generation Unlimited, or TGU. So what we have decided to do, take all these assets, 26% of Republic Bank, 23% of One Caribbean Media, Whitco shares, Trinidad Generation Unlimited, and put them into a company called the National Investment Fund Company Limited. And very soon, within the next month, this company is going to offer bonds to the general public based on the assets that we got from CLICO, the Republic Bank, the Whitco, the One Caribbean Media. We have decided to offer bonds based on the assets for two reasons. One, your return is guaranteed. When you invest in a company like First Citizens Bank or other companies that trade on the stock exchange, the price could go up, the price could go down. A lot of people don't have the appetite for that kind of risk. But what we're doing instead, we are issuing bonds that are guaranteed. So the government is guaranteeing the capital and guaranteeing the interest. And let me give you some idea of what the interest is going to be. We're offering the bonds in 3 tranches: 5 years, 12 years, and 20 years. The 5-year bonds will be at least 4.5% guaranteed. The 12-year bonds will be 5.5% guaranteed. And the 20-year bonds will be 6.5% guaranteed. And you can earn more than that depending on how the companies perform. But those interest rates I have just told you are guaranteed. And there's an added benefit. The interest on the bonds will be tax-free. Remember we spoke about tax-free bonds? Remember in our budget and in the manifesto we spoke about tax-free bonds? Well, you're now getting tax-free bonds based on the monetization of the CLICO assets. And the beauty of all of this, ladies and gentlemen, the dividends from the companies will pay back for the bonds as they mature in 5 years, 12 years, and 20 years. So as the bonds mature, people will have an option to roll them over or to cash them in. Your capital is guaranteed, your interest is guaranteed. And the dividends from the companies in the meantime, from Republic Bank and so on, will go into a fund to repay the bonds, and the government and the taxpayers and the people of this country will still own 26% of Republic Bank. So we are keeping all of these assets for you. We're not giving them to the wealthy and the privileged. We are keeping them in a government-owned company for the benefit of you, the people, in perpetuity. So that is our solution to the CLICO crisis. And we're toying with that interest rate. You've heard me say 4.5% over 5 years, 4.5% per year for 5 years guaranteed. But when it comes out, it might be 4.75 or 5%. You wait and see. Because we want to make it attractive to you, the little man. You put your savings in the bank, how much you get in 1%? 0.5%? Imagine you could get a government bond that earning 4.5 or 5% guaranteed. And you can sell the bond if you get into trouble. The bonds will be tradable. So if you run into trouble, you can sell the bond. What do you think of this idea, ladies and gentlemen? That's PNM working for you. All the old talk about it will be a fire sale and we will sell it to our friends and our family. Old talk. This is PNM. That's the kind of thing UNC does do. This is PNM, we don't do that. So, it's been my pleasure to speak to you tonight. I want to tell you we're not out of the woods yet. I have to raise $4 billion from the NIF. I can, because the assets in the NIF are over $8 billion in value. So I can raise bonds of $4 billion, and the dividends from the extra $4 billion is what will be going into the sinking fund to pay back for the bonds. And as the companies do better with time, the value of the companies will appreciate, so we'll have the money to repay the bonds. But we're not out of the woods. I have to raise that $4 billion from NIF before the end of this financial year. I'm very confident that I will. We've already tested the market. While everybody talking, we're doing our work. So we've been doing market research, talking to investors, see how they'll respond to this kind of offering coming out from the government. Guaranteed capital, guaranteed interest. You could trade the bonds, you could sell the bonds, and your interest will be tax-free. And the kind of feedback we've got is that this will be a winner. And this is how we're going to balance the budget for 2018. But 2019, we'll have to hope. We still have assets that we can dispose of in 2019, but we will have to hope, and we expect, and it is happening, because when I look at the numbers, it is happening. The economy is turning around. We expect that as things get better and better, we won't have to do this kind of thing anymore. And the revenue that we will get from tax, the revenue we'll get from value-added tax, from customs duty, and so on, will balance the budget, and this economy will become positive and stable because of your competent, caring PNM government. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Great to see PNM. And it shall be.
Let's hear it from Minister of Finance, the Honourable Colm Imbert. He was inside tonight. He educated you. We promise you the truth. You got the truth on the property tax. We promise you truth. You got the truth that people earning $6,000 and below do not pay tax. You got the truth. You got the truth that people on old age pension will not be paying property tax. But you also got the truth about UNC corruption. That is the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me once again, in introducing our guest speaker tonight, to phrase it in public education and PNM education for our two new standard bearers. This party is the oldest political party in Trinidad and Tobago. And you two young people who look like you're 14 and 15, you need to know where this party has come from and where we are going as I introduce our star speaker tonight. Once upon a time, there was a little boy in Tobago who grew up not too far from a mule-drawn sugar mill in Sandy Hill, Tobago. You know what a mule-drawn sugar mill is? Didn't have current. That little boy, today, is the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It is said that everybody has two birthdays. The day you were born and the day you found out what you were born for. This person was born, I believe, on October the 29th, 1947, was it? Correct? So that was the day he was born. But what he was born to do was on September the 7th, 2015, when we won the general election and he became the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. What he has done so far is regionally put Trinidad and Tobago back on the CARICOM agenda as a leader. What he has done locally is make sure we have employed all our public servants. What he has done in health, because I am the Minister of Health, is support the agenda to build a new central block in Port of Spain. Not a new hospital that we don't need. What he has done in energy is brought cross-border gas from Venezuela to Trinidad. What he has done in infrastructure is roads, bridges, all over Trinidad and Tobago. And what he has done is vision for diversification, Toco Port, Sandals, and a new terminal. This man is going to take Trinidad and Tobago to the next level. As I introduce him, I quote from Eric Williams, "You are your own in a big world in which you are one of many nations, some small, some medium, and some large. You are nobody's boss, and nobody is your boss." I want to introduce the boss of the People's National Movement, the boss of Trinidad and Tobago, the man, come at the moment, come at the man, Dr. the Honourable Christopher Rowley.
Because what don't kill you should make you stronger. So my problems is like steroids, boy. I get my doses from all kinds of sources, and all of them still can't kill me now. You see, as them sink me under ISO, ride on the storm, them just like a boat. So as the box me down, so I get up. They have to wonder how others get up. And every crack I see, I just see through. And by the help of God, I just get through. I just won't stop. I feel like hope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Member of Parliament for St. Joseph and our Minister of Health. My recognition of the Minister of Finance, Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Northeast, Minister of Finance Colm Imbert, my friend and colleague from Laventille West, the one and only Fitz-Gerald Hinds, and my former seatmate in the Parliament, now Chairman of the Southern Laventille Corporation, our one and only Mr. Anthony Roberts, local government specialist. Our party officers led out in the audience here this evening by the Venerable Mrs. Joan Yule Williams. My other cabinet colleagues, led by the Member of Parliament for Aruka Maloney, Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis, our Lady Vice Chairman, other cabinet members, other party officers, chairmen and members of corporations, and a special recognition to our stalwart. It's such a pleasure having you here this evening. And I see a lot of young people wilting in the heat in the room, but I'm sure, look at how fresh she's looking, Mrs. Small. 92 and running. It is such a good feeling to be in a PNM meeting and have a 92-year-old in the front row, and to have, is that your granddaughter? Her granddaughter coming forward for public service in the PNM. The PNM is the only political party in Trinidad and Tobago that has this legacy, and we are so proud of your family. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is the night for us to talk to you and the people of Trinidad and Tobago in general, because there's a time for work and there's a time to talk. A lot of talking has been taking place in this country for the last two and a half years, because all that they didn't do before should have been done in the last 2 years. Everything that was wrong with the country should have been fixed in the last 2 years. And everything that they want to do, we're supposed to have a vision to do it in this 2-year period. That's how it has gone on. We took notice of that, but we kept focus on what you elected us to do, which is to treat with the circumstances of Trinidad and Tobago and to give the people of Trinidad and Tobago a pathway out of any difficulty to the prosperity that resides in our national anthem, boundless faith in our destiny. And we have taken our destiny in our own hands, regardless of good times or bad times, in good health or ill health. We are the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we are responsible for whatever becomes of this God-given nation. That is the assignment you gave us. So for the last 2.5 years, I have led a team of people who you elected, and tonight you heard from the Minister of Finance. We are making progress, and we are on our way to some element of prosperity in the future ahead of us. The work has to be done. It is good news to hear that the numbers are better. They're going in the right direction. But that is not a license to let loose the gimme gang, that I want this and I want that and I want more this and I want more that. What we are doing is closing the gap between our revenue and our expenditure. And as the gap sees more revenue, it becomes smaller between revenue and expenditure. And that is what gives us the pathway to prosperity. The life that we are living now, as difficult as it is, as difficult as it may be for some people, and many people in this country are still going through difficult circumstances. But as difficult as it is, remember, we are still borrowing to maintain some semblance of the life that we have today. So there's no splurge to come as you hear more increase in revenue. It is simply that we are moving first to reduce the amount of money we are borrowing to fund our arrangements. Now, when we say we're borrowing to fund the running of the country, we get criticized from some people for that because they're saying we are encouraging the wrong thing. But if we are having to maintain some semblance of stability to allow us to go forward, we couldn't just crash the economy by adding 2 and 2 equals 4, as some have been encouraging us to do. Some persons have been encouraging us to devalue the dollar because that is the idea of their solution to our problems. Of course, it was one of the options available to us. As I say to you all the time, running this country is making a series of decisions, and these decisions are always about which option you choose. There's never any one way to do any one thing. So when you hear somebody saying the government didn't do this and the government didn't do that, that sounds good for them. But the government would have looked at all the options and would have chosen the best option for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, if we had devalued the currency, who tells you it would have been better? What guarantee you have that it wouldn't have been far worse? Because devaluation would have meant an increase in the cost of living for everybody, especially those at the lower income level. The cost of everything would have gone up. But they didn't care about that. As far as they're concerned, in the university down there and in the garden and on the radio, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Case closed. The government doesn't have that option. Our assignment was to try to make you survive the difficult period that we are going through. First and foremost, acknowledge it. Then treat with it. But have that faith that a better future is ahead for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, I want to thank the Minister of Finance, the hard-working Colm Imbert, for the work that he has put out in the last 3 years. You know, some of them, the derision was that, oh, we put our engineer to run the Ministry of Finance, as if that makes any sense, just by saying it. Patrick Manning was Minister of Finance in this country, you know. You know what Patrick Manning's training was? Geology. And they tell you George Chambers was the best Minister of Finance in this country in hindsight, of course, because when he was Minister of Finance, they called him Duncy. But after looking back on what has happened under his tenure and compared to other options, they say George Chambers might have been our best Minister of Finance. What was his background? Understand? So let me tell you, a lot of what passes for the national conversation is good diet for some people. Some of them get a weekly check from the media, in either the papers for the column or the radio station for the foolishness. Don't let that guide you because you don't know where they're taking you. But this government that you have elected, you know where we are taking you. We are taking you across the rapids, across the current, and taking you towards calm waters for prosperity. We have passed the midterm of this government's tenure of its 5 years. We have passed the midterm. And we can tell you tonight that we have accomplished the major assignment that we had when we were sworn in on September 9th, 2015, which is to stabilize this country's economy, deal with the collapse of our revenue, and position us towards growth and future prosperity. That assignment is well underway. To do that, we would would have had to spend a lot of time focusing on that skeleton of our country's economy upon which the rest of our limbs rely, the energy sector. Would you believe that even though we are so reliant on energy, that as we sought to fix the problems in the energy sector, we've been criticized by some know-it-alls that we are focusing too much on energy? I'll tell you one thing. The reality is this. If we did not fix the problems in the energy sector, we would have had little chance of avoiding the IMF in Trinidad and Tobago, and no chance of prosperity in the medium term and the long term. Because energy is our God-given legacy of resources which this country can market. And from the revenues from that sector, we have been able to accomplish what we've accomplished as a people and to enjoy the standard of living that we have been accustomed to, and which we demand, and which we claim. You hear the numbers Minister Imbert talking about tonight? Billions of dollars, 15 billion, 23 billion, 400. What other activity can you recommend to us that we can get involved in that will give us that kind of revenue in any short term? Tell me. Old talk is cheap. Stupid talk is available. Serious talk is what the Minister of Finance gave you tonight. So when you elected us to office, we came in and what was steering us in office was stagnation in the energy sector, closure of plants at Point Lisas, and $2 billion in claims from Point Lisas companies against your government for gas not delivered, gas contracted for companies in Point Lisas, and the Point Lisas companies performing at lower than capacity, down by 20% or 15%, and we didn't know where the gas was coming from. Minister Imbert just told you we were producing 3 billion cubic feet of gas per day. You know how much we require to be comfortable on the current consumption at Point Lisas? 4.2 billion. But we were producing 3. What that meant, every single day, gas was short going to Point Lisas. And we were contracted to provide that gas. And since you weren't providing it, you're not getting the revenue, but you're also getting a charge against your account from people who you contracted to provide it to and who wasn't getting it. So you're getting 2 hits. No revenue from their profits, but you have to pay them for not providing it. As leader of the government, one of the first things I did was to put in place a system which I knew worked, because I was on Patrick Manning's Energy Subcommittee of the Cabinet, where we meet all the people who influence that sector. We meet on a regular basis and focus the cabinet on the issues of that sector. I reconstituted the Energy Committee, and we met on a regular basis and we addressed these issues. As leader of this country, I told you before, you might have heard me saying this before, I am the country's #1 salesman. Because when I speak for this country, I speak as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I don't go see nobody in my bedroom slippers. I go representing the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and I sit across the table where I respect everybody and I demand respect for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the things that we have been able to accomplish is that we have been able to encourage some of the oil companies to withdraw their claims against us for the gas that was not supplied. We have also, in managing the country energy sector, treated with a problem that was not being treated with at all, and that was what price we'll put on the gas that is now having to go into the industries that sustain us. The country required a gas price. The 2 largest or the 3 largest suppliers of gas in this country had down tools, folded their arms, watching us and asking us, what is the gas price? What are you going to pay us for our gas? Because except for the gas that Petrotrin produces on Petrotrin's own operation, which is very, very, very small, the bulk of the gas in this country is provided by private sector companies. It is their gas. And when they produce it, they sell it to those who use it, through our company, the NGC. We own the NGC. Unfortunately, the NGC had $16 billion in cash when the UNC came in. They make sure they take out every cent. You know, I went to London recently, and I sat with Shell and BP, me and my team, and Shell and them on the team. My position to these companies on your behalf is that we are happy that they're doing well in Trinidad and Tobago because we need them here, we need their investment here. But as fast as they are reporting improved profits and performance for their shareholders, my position to them as the leader of Trinidad and Tobago on your behalf is that I have shareholders too. And my shareholders are the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So in the meeting in London, I was pleased to hear and to receive from one of these companies that the royalty that we have levied in the last appropriation bill, the last budget, that for the next 3 years, they will pay the royalty of $260 million US, but will not pass it on to the NGC. You know what that means? It means that that money is now going to be available to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But when we said that we were going to impose a royalty on this wasting resource, the know-it-alls and the pontificators jump out, either from the opposition party or from the radio station where they pay the $25 a week or whatever it is, telling you that because we have done that, we are reckless. Madam Kamala, who bankrupt this country, that we are reckless by imposing this tax, that foreign investors would now leave. They'll pick up their plans and leave the country, and investors wouldn't invest in this country because royalty is being charged on the gas at the wellhead. You think they're happy to hear that the royalty will be paid and paid to the NGC and not passed on as a tax to the NGC? Understand? We had no gas price settlement. Notwithstanding the fact that they've been priding themselves as being the best minister of energy and the best government and the best this, self-praise. That is what you were getting by the gallon from them. But your business was going to hell in a handbasket. During our term, our first year, into our second year, the NGC, your company, was negotiating under the guidance of the government, negotiating with these companies for the gas price. They came that close, and for months, they couldn't close the gap. So we had no gas price, nothing happening. As your leader, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, I sat across the table with Minister Young, with these companies, Shell, BP, and EOG. And we brought the two companies together, and they closed the deal, and we have a gas price. Immediately, $10 billion of investment was committed, and that's US dollars, was committed for investment in the energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago. It is that commitment over the next period of 5 years that is now driving the exploration in our deep water off the East Coast, guaranteeing us not only a supply of gas to keep us going as a gas user and a gas product exporter in this country, but guaranteeing us a supply of gas at the level at which we want, which is upwards of 4 billion cubic feet a day, not just to treat today's needs, but guaranteeing us that into the future. And our future has to be a long, deep one, because we, those of us who have both feet in this country, and those of us who want this country to have a long and prosperous future, we don't count in terms of this week or next week or this generation. We look well beyond the generations to come. And that is why, notwithstanding whatever difficulty is going on in Venezuela, there's a government in Venezuela, and your government went to Venezuela, and at the level of Prime Minister and government of Trinidad and Tobago, meeting with the government of Venezuela, we started to work on this whole question of having Trinidad and Tobago being a gateway for gas from eastern Venezuela into our pipes, into our pipeline down to Point Lisas to give us a future, not next week or next month, but for the years ahead. We are one decision away from that matter being closed. I think in the next week, Minister Young goes to Panama to meet with Minister Young and Shell and PDVSA. The Minister of Energy of Venezuela and our Minister and Shell, which is partnering us in this arrangement, and we should have a closure to that, and we have an agreement where Venezuelan gas from eastern Venezuela would find its way to market through Trinidad and Tobago. We did that, not because we didn't have gas here, but because we are looking at the future, the long term for Trinidad and Tobago. That is what a government does. That's what a government ought to do. So we've settled the energy sector. We've settled the manufacturing sector in Point Lisas. So having put the skeleton in good position, we turned elsewhere. You always hear about diversification, diversification. It's an annoying word because some people are still making $25 a week at the newspaper writing columns about diversification. Annoying. When you ask them, diversify into what? They can't tell you. What would you do to diversify the economy, especially if you abandon the energy sector? They can't tell you. But they're on television, they're on radio, they're in the newspaper, diversification. But let me tell you what our diversification is. Our diversification is to find the things that we can do and just do them. We talked a lot. I was minister under Prime Minister Patrick Manning. I was Minister of Planning and Development. I was responsible for putting Vision 2020 in place. My successor, Minister Camille Robinson-Regis, she concluded it, but it was started under me. And in the years 2001 to 2004, I think it was, that assignment was part of my portfolio. So I am privileged to have an insight into what the country can and cannot do, and how big certain aspects of our economy can be or cannot be. So now that I'm Prime Minister, I can more confidently drive my ministers on some of the things that I know something about. When you have a Prime Minister who knows nothing about nothing, they could talk everything about everything and get nothing done. So I know that one of the areas that we can do something is in the tourism sector. And that is why early in the game, when I was opposition leader, I spoke to the owners of sandals and asked them to look at Tobago and see if Tobago can attract a sandals project which could give us all the spin-off from that world-renowned, all-inclusive tourism product. People in the opposition are asking me what process I use to procure them and whatever. I'm not answering them stupid questions. We have nothing to hide. Everything that we do on the table, who know otherwise? Who know otherwise? Let them say so. I make $1.5 million already from people telling lies about me and slandering me. I want to make some more. Right? So, if we go into tourism, we have to do it in a way that it can make a significant contribution to the economy. If you don't believe me, ask the Prime Minister of Grenada what 167 rooms at Sandals have done for the economy of Grenada. Don't take our word for it. We are talking about a Sandals and a Beaches Hotel in Tobago together of 800 rooms. But we're not giving Sandals anything. We're using the same model that gave us the Hilton and the Hyatt. They are government-owned. All of you here know the government owned the Hilton. We as PNM get no credit for that. Understand? Under Eric Williams, we built the Hilton, and Hilton been run by a management contract using the Hilton label, the famous upside-down hotel. Later on, under Patrick Manning, the Hyatt came into being. We own the Hyatt on the Hyatt label. So if we have that successful model, what I'm saying to you, the sandals in Tobago, the government builds it, and we have a sandals label on it, and we have a tourism product in Tobago, and we try to fill the rooms and put the economy in Tobago on its 2 feet. What is all this questioning about where you're going to give them, and where you're going to get, and where you're going to do, and coming from the pontificators who don't know the front from the elbow, and those are the people who are trying to harass you when the day comes. In your difficult circumstance, we are trying to lead you into the light, them turning off your bulb. Right? Anything we give to the Sandals project in Tobago, we give to ourselves because it is our hotel. But to put it in place, it will cost a few $100 million. And if the government could avoid spending any and all of that, better still. So the first thing we did, we offered shareholding in the project to the biggest local companies in Trinidad and Tobago. Two of them said, yes, we will consider coming in for taking a piece of the equity. One said we're not interested at all. Because there are some people in Trinidad and Tobago, all they're interested in is finding as much of the subsidized US dollars that the government put in the banks, hoard it, and demand a devaluation. And the Minister of Finance devalued the currency, and they make hundreds of millions of dollars by the Minister of Finance just saying so. Well, that may be good for them, but it's not good for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we're starting out with the government going to build and own that hotel, and to the extent that we find partners with equity, we will reduce the government's exposure. But if they don't come, the government will have to go it alone on your behalf, and they usually come after. Last week, a few months ago, we met with a local investor who was claiming he had some money. And he wanted to give us advice as to how to run the country. And the way to run the country is to give him the Hyatt Hotel. You understand? Anyway, but that's another story. So we are going in a big way in tourism. But of course, it's not a single action. You would have heard us saying that we're looking at increasing Carl's involvement in international travel. On my trip to China recently, I took the chairman of Caribbean Airlines. And the purpose for doing that is because we are looking at the Chinese market as one of the areas that could drive growth in the tourism sector in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. As I speak to you now, as a result of that visit to China, CAL is already connected to one of the best airlines in China. We have 12 planes. We own an airline, Caribbean Airline, costing us an arm and a leg. This airline we're talking about has 1,200 planes. We have 12. They have 1,200. I don't know how many of you put our situation in the perspective of history. There was a time in this country when there was nothing going on except manual labor. And industry was people in the pitch lake carrying buckets on their head with pitch that they took out with a pickaxe. That was the beginning of it. And then later on, the oil industry grew with British investment, you know, British Petroleum and Hubert and so on. We don't know our history, you know. We don't like play a part in our development, but we need to. Foreign investment came to this country when we were a British colony, came from Britain, and later on from the United States. And all along, we've had this foreign investment inflow. Today, under today's world circumstances, other than the energy sector where US investment is very large and very important to us, what is the foreign investment we can look to the US for, and in what area? And there are far more areas competing for it than when it was 30 or 40 years ago. But today, China is the world's second largest economy. So while the economy of Britain drove us for a while, and the economy of the United States drove us for another period of time, if we are to tap into serious inflows of foreign investment, we have to look to economies that have investment and looking to invest it abroad, and China is where that is today. So we've gone to China, we met with the Chinese at the very highest level, and we are in serious discussion with them, and we told them straight, we are not simply interested in Chinese companies coming here and getting funded for a contract to build something and get paid as a contractor and leave the country after. We are interested in you coming here and investing in our future because you have something that we want and you have something that we want. We need your investment and you need us on our location and our resources in the Caribbean. And we're not just talking about Tobago there. Because if Caribbean Airline links up with a good Chinese airline and we become the hub in the Southern Caribbean for international travel to the largest market for tourists now, because China is now producing more tourists on the world market than any other country. 120 million Chinese traveled last year. If a fraction of that comes down to the Southern Caribbean through Trinidad and Tobago, that will drive our economy in some distance. And more importantly, if they invest in our country to allow us to maximize our location in the Caribbean, particularly through the airline that we own, then we'll be using our resources to create a future which would be bright for us, which we now do not have. And that was the reason for my visit to China. One of the reasons, next week, a group of Chinese businessmen come to Trinidad and Tobago. Because another thing we are doing is to try to tap into the Chinese strength in manufacturing and export of manufactured products. And that is why we are building in Phoenix Park an industrial estate which will initially be populated by 10 large Chinese manufacturing companies to create jobs in Trinidad and Tobago and to create products for export. Of course, I know there are people who will tell us that we can export tomato, bygone, cucumber, lettuce, and so on. Fine, fine, nothing wrong with that. But of course, the scale at which that will earn money for us, important as it may be, is still minuscule. We are talking about looking for the kind of investment that could give us the kind of effect that will significantly contribute to a broadening of our economy. You would have heard us talking about the maritime sector as an area of growth. You heard it when the Manning government identified in our program Vision 2020 that they threw in the labas. 5 years, they're in office, they produced nothing, did nothing. But I can tell you, we are on the verge now of trying to move from talk to action. I received in China a presentation of work that we have done for the last year in La Brie, where what we're talking about is trying to create in Trinidad and Tobago a ship servicing business to service large ocean-going vessels. And the reason why we target that business in China is because that is what they're good at. And when you look at the world map of the business where they are all over the world, the one place where there's a gap where that business doesn't exist is in this region of Central South America and the Caribbean. And we've said to the Chinese, we want to partner with you to establish that kind of facility in Trinidad and Tobago, but we want you to have skin in the game. We want you to have equity in it. We don't want you to build anything for us and then walk away and leave us with it. And when we can't pay for it, you say, well, give it to me for the debt you owe me. But if you are an equity partner, you handle 200 ships a year. I'm talking about huge ocean-going vessels, cargo vessels in particular, Panamax vessels. If we get some of those vessels in Trinidad and Tobago, it comes in an area where we have expertise, we have skills. And on my trip to China, I went to one of these companies that is interested in Trinidad and Tobago in this discussion to see exactly what they do. And it is the kind of business that the people of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly those people who have grown up in and around the energy sector, it's welding, it's painting, it's handling of machines, and so on and so on. And they have made a proposal to us for a business in Trinidad and Tobago. And we are well advanced in those discussions, and I hope that it comes to fruition because we're not just talking, we are talking about partnering with those who are involved in that business. And if we do that and have that kind of business in Trinidad and Tobago, it will have a large and positive impact on the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in South Trinidad. So these are the kinds of things that we are doing, and you'll see and hear more of them in the weeks and months ahead. When I met with the President and the Premier of China, we had these discussions, because you know a lot of these Chinese companies, because of the nature of the Chinese system, these companies are government-owned. Most of them. The airline I spoke about that Cal is aiming to partner with is private sector from one part of China. But the bulk of the companies are government-owned. And in the discussion with the Premier and President of China, they understood. And more importantly, they acknowledged Trinidad and Tobago's partnership with China since China became a member of the United Nations. We are very highly regarded and very highly respected in China, and we are to leverage that for our benefit at this point in our history. That is what this government is doing. And the heads of the Chinese government indicated to us that they accept our position of not simply providing opportunities for Chinese contractors, but that we need that equity investment, that foreign investment. And they've indicated that they're happy to have their companies participate in enterprises which are commercially sound. And that is why I went to China, to get that position for companies that can invest, that have the wherewithal to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. Some of the largest banks in the world today are Chinese banks. And if you're looking for foreign investment and partnership, you fish where the fish is. Ladies and gentlemen, as we do that, you know, things don't always go the way you plan them. Just as we are beginning to see the light, as Mr. Imbert has just mentioned, and just as our work for the last year and a half is beginning to put us in a position for that next leap into expanding our economy, guess what happens? Barbados announced that they're in big trouble. Barbados is on its way to the IMF. And for those of you who don't understand, Barbados is not alone in that matter. We are there with them. Because Barbados' success is our success, and Barbados' pain is our pain. For those of you who have been following the news from Barbados, you would have heard in the very first week of the new government, the government has announced they're going to the IMF and they're going to restructure the economy. We have to wait now and see what are the conditionalities of that restructuring. But the government has already announced what is in effect a default in handling their debt and in handling commercial arrangements in Barbados. Before you understand the full extent of this for you here in Trinidad and Tobago, you have to wait for the government to tell you, because the others will not tell you the exposure of Trinidad and Tobago's businesses to the conditions that will apply in Barbados. And it will have serious consequences for us, depending on how serious it is over there. Because just as Minister Imbert was telling us that we are receiving more taxes from the non-oil sector, it might very well be that some of our non-oil sector people might be exposed in Barbados in one way or the other and may not be in a position to improve or increase their profitability going forward. And currently might be, some of them might, in fact, see some significant retraction. So just as we are thinking that we are getting the benefit of increased non-oil taxes, it might very well be that we have exposure there. I don't want to talk too much about it now because we have to examine it to see exactly what our exposure is, because our economies are in fact intertwined. You see, the level of the national conversation in Trinidad and Tobago is extremely poor. Because anybody could buy a hammer and call yourself carpenter, anybody buy a trowel and is a mason, anybody go in front of a microphone and you're a commentator in Trinidad and Tobago. You have to have no facts. You have to have no knowledge of anything. As a matter of fact, many of them now start out with the, I don't know, you know, but. As the I don't know, but, watch it. They're coming to pontificate, and it's all negative. It's bad enough that you have to look at the future of a gathering storm coming at you, and all the pouring inside your ear hole is negative. Who encourages you to get up and stand up and to flex your muscle and walk out into the storm, because the storm is not going to last all your life? Who encourages you to do that? The People's National Movement. And that is why these two young ladies tonight, Ms. Kimberly Small, who will represent us here in the Barataria local government seat, and Ms. Young from Belmont, two of our standard bearers, when they wear this red, when they come as our candidates, stand, let them see you, our young people. This is the latest generation of the PNM, carrying our standard as it was carried in 56, as it was carried in 66, as it was carried in 76, as it was carried in 2015. Our young people, whether it is Isabel Tisha or Carmen Robinson Regis, tonight we have the next generation. And of course, there's no political party that has opened the way for women in this country that more than the People's National Movement. We are doing what has to be done for this country at this juncture, and all of it is not painless. And it is because I recognize that as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, that I don't lose 1 minute's sleep over the outcome of the next general election. Because we are prepared to do what has to be done, confident that if we do what has to be done with the integrity, the honesty, and the God-given talent that we have available in this party and in this country, we are confident that the future of Trinidad and Tobago is bright and will be on our way to prosperity. Tomorrow morning, I go down to South Trinidad to open a section of the highway that we're building to Point 14. Monies that we have recovered from attempts to steal it. The project is going on. We had to, Minister Young, he's somewhere in the corner over there, had to lead the government charge in capitals abroad to get back $1 billion from the largest contract that we have ever had in this country. When election week, Rambachan as minister oversaw his ministry taking out from the contract the clause that said that a contractor who goes bankrupt could be fired by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. They take out the clause to protect the contractor. We had to go to court, and we fought them, and we won. But they're still fighting in arbitration, but the court has ordered us that we could spend the money in the meantime. We're spending the $900 million on the road to Point 14. Tomorrow morning I go to open a piece of the work that has been completed under our stewardship and to award more contracts. Because we understand that half of the country's prosperity would not be the whole country's prosperity. And developing half of the country and leaving the other half behind is simply hamstringing ourselves for not getting the full potential of our nation. And that is why 3 areas in this country are falling to focus under this government to bring those areas into the national economy to contribute as fully as the rest of the economy. The Southwestern Peninsula, where La Brea is the center today of poverty. You mark my word that very soon La Brea would be the center of prosperity in industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Eastern Trinidad, from Arima all the way to Toko, the statistics will show, is the poorest area of Trinidad and Tobago. And to deal with that, you have to build the infrastructure to bring these people into the economy and to bring the economy to them. And you do so by building them the infrastructure that the rest of the country has. The highway from Valencia to Toko and to Manzanilla and on the way to Toko is the only highway in this country ever built where every single approval, right down to local government approval, has been had. And of course, with the court fighting, because there are people in this country whose approach to trying to get their control is to try and obstruct and stop every God in heaven thing that this country tries to do for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So we lost the whole dry season. The entire dry season is lost now because anytime now the rains can break. And the people of Valencia, Sangre Grande, Cumana, Rampanalgas, Toko and Tobago would have been denied the access that we were building for them going that way. I don't know if you all recall, when we were building the highway out of Port of Spain, we built the first piece up to Barataria, up to here, flyover up to here. The next piece up to Curep, then we built it in sections. To San Fernando, we built it piece by piece, but now we have a highway going all the way to San Fernando. That's how we're building it going east, so that the people of the east can benefit from that infrastructure. There are some people in this country who don't want that. Understand? They don't want that. But let me tell you something. There's a piece of land in Glencoe. You know Glencoe? Up in Glencoe, there's a piece of land under forest. If you see monkey, snake, butterfly, goatee, anything, laptop, it's for sale. Anybody here want to buy it? It's for sale for development, for the forest to be bulldozed, to crowd up the road in Glencoe, to create flooding in Glencoe, to disrupt the habitat of the monkey and the lap and the goatee and the tattoo. But the same owners of that land who have it for sale for millions of dollars to put in their pocket, running up to Toko to tell people in Toko, don't let the government build no road because monkey passed in there and goatee passed there last night. So when it is time to develop the infrastructure for the wider national community, they have issues of infrastructure, they have issues of environment. But when it's time to destroy operations of Glencoe, not interested in that. You understand what we're dealing with? You understand? So the third area is Tobago. For too long, and thankfully, Tobago is still pristine and for too long left out of the national economy. We are expanding our national economy in Tobago. We're building a new terminal building on the airport. We're building a marina in Tobago. And we're building the project I mentioned earlier on, the expansion with the Sandals brand in Tobago. Those three items will give us a significant jump in the tourism area and bring the Tobago economy center stage in Trinidad and Tobago, where Tobago contribute far more than it's contributing now for all the people of Tobago and for Trinidad and Tobago. Those are the kinds of things that your government is engaged in. Only today, the cabinet approved a number of millions of dollars to complete the E-Tech Industrial Park in Wallerfield so that we could, the dream that was stopped and killed by the said Stephen Cadiz. You heard his name called it tonight? So while he was shutting down the E-Tech Park, leaving it there to gather dust and moss, because they have no vision for the future of this or the other generation, they was preparing their own family pocket well lined and well secured. So on the back of Chief Noel 136, when he was counting dead people, murdered people, when he left the government, he made sure he fixed his family with the contract to maintain vessels, millions and millions of dollars, just by being the middleman to maintain. And of course, to maintain on their terms. Ladies and gentlemen of Trinidad and Tobago, it depends on who you are listening to in this country that you will determine the nature of the education of your own situation and understand who is on your side. How many times did you hear from the UNC government that they fixed the Clico matter? Whether it was Dukaran or Larry Hawaii. Remember them? We have fixed the Clico matter once and for all. But when they were owing us $15 billion of your money, unsecured and with no interest being accrued, and telling the government, get off the board, and we are not signing the agreement, an agreement that they extended 16 times and had to be extended for the 17th time. I am Prime Minister, Imbert is Minister of Finance. Well, Imbert's short, he's low, fence, I could jump over. Or so they thought. So they thought. You owe the government $15 billion on which you're paying no interest. You got your government friends before to tell the country that you fix it and all fix. Spend 5 years in office, they wouldn't collect a cent of the money is owed to the people. But whether we wanted to or not, we had to, because as Mark Senthouse say, we need the money. And while that is so, you have the gall, with the encouragement of one of the pontificators on radio on Friday morning, to come and tell the country that the government must get off the board, give up the chairmanship and get off the board. I sent Mr. Hinds to talk to them. Don't try me. Don't test the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and worse, this is the PNM. When we went to court that weekend, when they organized the AGM, remember they organized AGM to throw the government off the board? Because what they decided, since we did not agree to get off the board, when Dupré came back for the company, they decided to add directors to the board, to put the government in the minority and take back the company. We had to go to court. They thought we were incompetent, they thought we were stupid. What they didn't realize, that all along while they was carrying on with the parading on radio and elsewhere, we were talking to the best lawyers in London. And we had the best advice available. And when they made their move to put the government off the board and to huff the $15 million under their control, we went to court and asked the court to give us a liquidator. When we did that, that weekend, that whole weekend, it boiled right down to race. Right down to race, it boiled down to, it was Cyril Dupré company, the black man company, and the la 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 la. You remember that story? And of course, when they won the first round in the court, where the judge said it must be heard, man, they crow like a rooster. And the next time in the court, in 15 minutes, we won the case, and the company was liquidated, and the assets are now under the control of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and you're going to get back your $15 million. And if that is what they call incompetence, we will be incompetent Monday to Friday and on to the next Monday. Because we act in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You see, we've done that. We've got your money now secured because we have the assets under our control, and the Minister of Finance will have told you tonight how we intend to proceed. I want to say one thing to you here, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, tonight. I'm giving you a piece of advice that Hugh Eastman, a good friend of mine who passed away recently, told me when I was a young man. I was about in my early 20s. And he said to me, regardless of what you are working for, you must be able to save something from it. Especially if you look towards having a family and your family having a future. He said, the example he gave me then is if you were working for $10 and you figure you can't make ends meet and you're suffering and you're oppressed, you're living. Suppose your salary was $9 and you would still be living. So from the $10, if you save one and you live on the 9, you're ahead of the game. And that is how I've lived my life ever since. As we make these assets available to you through those bonds, I'm appealing to the people, especially the little people of Trinidad and Tobago. Don't be encouraged into believing that you have no place in this. Let me remind you of what used to happen when the UTC was being formed. There were people in this country who were opposed to the unit trust. And they were opposed to the PNM government forming a unit trust, because they knew it was going to fail, and it was going to this, and it was going to that. Today, there is hardly a family or an owner in this country who does not have an account at the unit trust. So as we put the National Investment Fund available out there to you, make the sacrifice, make the investment, and own a piece of it. Organize your life as an investor of some sort. Don't consume everything that you own. She said the future. I will say your children's future. Because it is how the next generation does that will determine how successful this generation is. So when this opportunity comes to you, an opportunity many of them didn't think would ever come to you, but as long as there's a people's national movement with a record like our record, you will always have a future, and prosperity will always be your portion. You see, this issue of race, it is the one issue that can derail us and ensure that we do not realize our fullest potential. Tonight, I want to caution the influence makers in Trinidad and Tobago to stop trying to use race to advance their personal or their political agenda. One of the successes of this country is that as a multi-ethnic, multiracial society, we have lived together in harmony, and let us continue so to do. Last carnival, as a matter of fact, before carnival, we have had to answer questions in the parliament about what we are doing, about our citizens who are leaning towards terrorism abroad and whatever. That's that story, because some of our people had gone abroad and become poster boys for the Iraqi terrorists and ISIS and so on. And we, the government, have to answer in the parliament to the opposition who are doing that job. They ask us questions, and I think on 2 or 3 occasions we had to answer them as to, and the main answer we were giving them is that we were monitoring those who were so inclined to be sympathetic to that situation. It's a world situation. Virtually everywhere in the world was facing it, and still facing it. We told the parliament we were monitoring. Coming up towards carnival, some of the people that we were monitoring came on the radar big time to us from abroad, because we are cooperating with some of the bigger countries who have more resources abroad, and they would assist us with information that is valuable to us. And you would know at carnival time we told you what we had to do and so on. One of the things we did, we raided, the security services raided a couple of mosques. When that was done, there were those who took it upon themselves to go and be telling this country that the government is anti-Muslim. The government is anti-this. And telling the international community how the government capriciously was doing this and that to places of worship and so on. You remember that story? Today, one of the very mosques that we had to raid at carnival time, on credible information that the security services had, we have found within that place of worship lethal weapons, arms and ammunition in a place of worship. I want to ask you tonight, given what we found today in a place of worship, what do you say to and think about those persons who at carnival time carried a conversation in this country that the government of Trinidad and Tobago was anti-Muslim and was in fact desecrating Muslim places of worship? What are they saying to us now? They're saying to us that if you know that there are arms and ammunition and you get credible information that arms and ammunition are finding their way into places of worship, whether it's Baptist, Orisha, Hindu or Muslim, the police mustn't act. That's what he's saying to us. Because if the police acts, these loudmouths who are advancing their own personal agendas will stir up racial and religious strife in this country. Tonight I want to say to the Muslim community, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, especially the leaders in the Muslim community, none of us have anything to gain by encouraging that kind of development in our country. And it is important that we tell our people, especially our young people who may be wanting to go down that road, that there's nothing but sadness and sorrow at the end of that pathway. And as we continue to subscribe to the words, letter, and spirit of our national anthem, where every creed and race finds an equal place, let us all defend that equality in that equal place. Today, after the UNC walked out the parliament last night because they didn't get their commissioner. I didn't know they had a commissioner. I didn't know they had a commissioner. Rambachan sleep whole night last night in the debate. Somebody told him, somebody tell the one next to him, hunch him before he snore. As he opened his eyes, he wasn't concerned about where the debate was, what the logic was in the debate, and so on. It just flowed out of his mouth. It just flowed out of his mouth that they don't want an Indian commissioner. I wasn't there when it happened, but I'm being told that when Minister Dale Singh was talking, he shouted that comment across the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, during World War II, there was a slogan that was used by the Allies. Loose lips sink ships. Stupid talk by Rambachan and UNC mouthpieces could destroy nations. Because they walked out the parliament last night because they want to go home. They want to go and drink by the Hyatt, so they left. They left the people's business in the parliament and traipsed down to the Hyatt to drink. You know, you don't have a thing with drinking, right? Right. So they left and went to drink. After contriving to walk out of the parliament, I expected today that they would do the usual, which is to conduct some kind of press conference and to misrepresent the facts, to say how the speaker chased them out of the parliament and so on. They didn't do that. They did one better. The singular statement that came out of the UNC today came out of the mouth of somebody called Anita Hinds. Anita Hinds, who is the PRO of the United National Congress, a party that just came out of 5 years of government, a party that is in opposition, that aspires to be the next government, if you're crazy. But hear the statement today. The official statement from the UNC today is that we, the PLM, the government, contrived last night to remove the Indian nominee and didn't do anything about the African nominee in the parliament. So Dulal Chan was blocked, but Philip was not. That is the official statement from the UNC today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you all, and I'm speaking here to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, against this official position of the UNC, let me as leader of the government tell you what the facts are. The President of the Republic, following the Constitution and a process that took place to look for a commissioner, where those who were doing the looking through the Public Service, the Police Service Commission, sent the names to the President of two people, Dulal Chan for commissioner, Philip for deputy commissioner. And the President, under the Constitution, had to send that to the Parliament for the Parliament to say yea or nay. When it came to the Parliament, the matter was sent to a joint select committee because there was a special select committee of the Parliament to determine what was the problem that was going on with respect to the dissatisfaction of those who were applicants in the process. because serious allegations were being made, serious discontent was going on, and that was the subject of the day. It went to the select committee chaired by Mr. Hinds, and I want to congratulate Mr. Hinds for the work he did. That committee was to assist the Parliament with information so as to be able to either accept or reject what the process sent to us by way of the President. Last night, as leader of the government, after the debate, we were able to take a position that the government could not support the notification sent to us. And therefore, the notification, whether it was to make Dulal Chan commissioner or to make Philip deputy commissioner, we said that the process is flawed. And from that flawed process, nobody could be appointed. Now, that affects Mr. Dulal Chan in a particular way. He cannot be commissioner. It also affects Mr. Philip. He cannot be deputy. But Mr. Philip is deputy even without the process. Philip is already the deputy. So why is the UNC now going to lie to the country to create racial strife, to say that we took an action that was selective against Dulal Chan and to favor Philip, when in fact the outcome of that parliamentary debate and the whole process is that the whole matter goes back to the Police Service Commission for the commission to deal with, and the commission does not take instructions from the government. It's an independent commission. You see the level of wickedness that goes on in Trinidad and Tobago, where they're always playing the race card. Last week I was abroad. I saw a very highly qualified young person in Trinidad and Tobago, professional person, at a function in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm reading this thing abroad and my eyes are burning me. The entire presentation of this person, probably politically driven or otherwise, is about racial discrimination against Indian people in Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, where is that happening in Trinidad and Tobago? So they are prepared to pay fast and loose. The UNC is the official opposition in this country, and that is the statement they make today. And of course, they never want anybody else to mention the word race. Last night, as soon as I started my presentation, and I took history with Rambachan, they jump up, all of them jump up, to accuse me of race, because I am responding to their racial statements. Well, I'll respond to it every day of the week, because I am not afraid to speak about race in this country, because we all have our racial origin, and we all are in danger of those who would use race to destroy Trinidad and Tobago. They don't want us to speak about it, but they want to use it to drive their politics. Well, I will tell you, as I told you a little while ago, we in this government that you have elected, we have a period of months still in office. We will do what we have to do for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And whenever the election is called, you, the people, will have to determine whether we continue or whether somebody else runs this country. That is your right, that is your opportunity. And I will say to you, all we will be doing in that general election to come is to tell you what we have done for and on your behalf during the 5 years that we were in government. And we do so without fear. Without fear. Ladies and gentlemen, this PNM is the glue that holds this country together. This PNM is the fabric that gives us that future, that oneness, that strength as a people. And that is why I am confident that come July the 16th, in Barataria and Belmont, the people in these communities will have no difficulty but come out and join the PNM and vote for PNM candidates to maintain that stability, that progress, and that prosperity that we anchor. While them talking, we working. And we're working for you. I'm proud of the team that I lead. Many of them are young and in government for the first time. But they are learning, they have learned, and they're getting stronger every day. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honourable Christopher Rowley. And when we say great is the PNM, it is not a slogan, it is the truth. And to show you the green shoots of the PNM, we want to invite on the stage Ms. Kimberly Small, your candidate for Barataria. Come on. We want to invite Ms. Nicole Young, your candidate for Belmont East. And that is why we say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM. And these two people will prevail. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure being with you this afternoon. It has been a pleasure. Your company has been outstanding. Look at them. Reach home safely. May God bless each and every one of you. And may God bless Trinidad and Tobago. Good night.